If you've been feeling like your law firm is solid, but you know you're capable of more, this is your chance to tap into that. Max Law Con is happening this October, and we just released the full speaker lineup. These are law firm owners and industry experts who are in the trenches, sharing exactly what's working to grow, lead, and scale. This is 2 days designed to challenge your thinking, recharge your momentum, and help you walk away with a strategy you actually want to execute. And here's the heads up, July is the last month to save $500 off your ticket. Once August hits, general admission pricing kicks in. So if you've been waiting, now's the time. Go check out the full lineup and grab your ticket at maxlawcon.com. We can't wait to see you there.
Get ready, because here's your host, Tyson Mutrux.
Good morning and welcome to the Guild Morning Show, which we're soon going to call the Guild Live Show. I was playing around with some AI and I was playing around with a new intro. See what you think about this.
And now, here's your host of the Guild Morning Show, Tyson Mutrux.
I thought that was kind of interesting. Using AI to do that, did a pretty good job. Said my name mostly right, so that was pretty good. We've got a really stacked lineup today, so I'm going to try to get to everything as quickly as I can, try to get done in 30 minutes. For those of you that are listening to this on the podcast or watching this on YouTube, this means that you're getting this about 3 or 4 days later than what the Guild gets it. So what we're doing now is we're going to, as opposed to recording this on Saturdays and just keeping it in the Guild, what we're going to do is we're going to record this on Wednesdays live. And then, so we still have the comments. I'm still interacting with everyone in the Guild. If you have questions in the Guild, feel free to throw them in the comments. I've got them over here, so I'm monitoring those. But for everyone else, you are listening to this or watching this. And so if you are listening for the things that I throw on the screen, don't worry, I'm going to explain them. That way you can understand everything. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, welcome, comment. I would love to hear from you. Same thing for everyone else, just as every other Saturday episode that I talk about, love to hear from you. So 314-501-9260, shoot me a text. Would love to hear from you. Add it to your contacts and then you won't have to remember it. So, but let's get into it, because as I said, we do have a pretty stacked show. From the death of resumes to Facebook group chaos, we're going to talk about productivity hacks that actually work, to mental traps that are keeping your business stuck in neutral. So let's get into it. Lots to cover. In segment 1, and I've got these broken into multiple segments as I normally do for the show. And on the first segment, we're going to be talking about the copy playbook, which is the copywriting playbook. It's really unlocking the language of action. And what we're talking about is words. So let's talk about words here, and not just any words, but words to move people, words that make someone click, call, buy, words that feel like they were written just for them. That's really what we're talking about. So I'm going to show you the copywriting playbook that I found online that I think people will really find helpful. And for those of you that are watching, you're going to see I'm going to have this on the screen here. So this is what I found online. It's a really cool, just a simple one sheet playbook. And I'm going to break that down now for everybody that is not watching. So here's the rule that underpins all of it, and that's clarity beats clever every time. And so let's start with the headline. The first impression, it either stops the scroll or it gets ignored. And it could be like last year's TikTok trend, which no one cares about. To write a great one, you need to follow this. It's a 5-part formula. That's why I think it's really great about this. For those of you that struggle with copywriting, having something like this can be really, really helpful. So with part of this 5-part formula, you're going to start with a promise, and you're going to make it specific is what you're going to do. Then you're going to add a vehicle or a method. You're then going to layer in a timeline. And then finally, you're going to anchor it with a number. So let me show you. So you take this line grow your business revenue by 20% in 60 days with email marketing. And so that's not hype. That's a crystal clear promise that you're giving to them. And it's really the difference between get more clients and book 5 high ticket clients this month using this cold email script, right? That's specific. Specific sells, vague disappears. For those of you that are trial lawyers, you kind of understand that, right? You can talk about a lot about emotions and all that, but really, if you don't give them something crystal clear to take back with you to the courtroom or into the jury room, you're probably going to lose. And so, same thing when it comes to marketing. So let's move to calls to action. So CTAs, calls to action. If you're still writing, click here or learn more, you're leaving conversations on the table. And by the way, I have AI for that one too. So check this out.
All right, lawyers, if your website still says learn more or subscribe today, we need to talk, because those aren't CTAs. They're polite shrugs.
I think it's pretty funny. I'm going to throw in any additional videos as soon as whenever I can. But what you're going to do is you're going to swap the things out like that swap those out for things like, and here's some examples of some of the examples or things that you're going to swap those out for. So, start building today. And, you could do that if you're doing some sort of business to business when it comes to law firms representing businesses, own it now, get instant access. Many of those are some examples that you see online. I was trying to choose examples where you see them and you're like, oh, I want to do something. Join 10,000 others. So if I'm thinking kind of like Joey Vitale with like trademarks, right? And I don't know how many he's done. He may not have done 10,000, but you can say, join thousands of others, and you can use that sort of herd mentality with that one. So the trick is you want to make it sound like a benefit and not a button. So what is the benefit to clicking that? It's not a button, it's a benefit. So once you figure that out, now we're going to look at the frameworks of it. These are your go-to structures when you're feeling struck. One that I remember always learning whenever I was at Mizzou learning marketing, because that's what my undergrad is in, but it's also in this Copywriting Playbook. It's AIDA, and it starts with attention, interest, desire, and action. And this is how you can turn a scroll into a sale. And if that's too linear for you, something else you can try is something called PAS, and it starts with problem, and then you go from problem, agitate, solution, right? So problem, agitate, solution. So for example, like tired of dull hair, right? So that's your problem. So you're not alone. Our revitalizing shampoo changes everything. That's a very common example of a commercial that you might hear, right? So just create a very similar solution. So you have the problem, agitate, solution. You create that same formula for your law firm. Do the exact same thing. And it's a very simple one as opposed to the AIDA, which is, it's a little bit more, you're getting their attention, you draw on their interest, you pull on their desires, and then you encourage them to take action. Problem, agitate, solution is just a little bit simpler, I think. Another thing is we talk about know, like, and trust. So if you want to win trust fast, you can use the 4 C's. This is a really good one, especially for law firms, right? Clear, concise. So you want to start with, be very clear. Concise as the next part of it, compelling, and then credible. So clear, concise, compelling, credible. And here's an example. So fast relief, no side effects, trusted by doctors, try it today, right? Those of you have probably heard that one a lot. That's a very, very common one that people use in many different industries. So, fast relief, no side effects, trusted by doctors, try it today. That's a really good example. Then you can also look, another one from this is FAB. I've never heard it called FAB. That's the first time I've heard it called FAB, but they talk about features, advantages, benefits. And that works great for things like for product pages or things you can think of like, I kind of view like estate planning and trademarks kind of like a product. It's almost like you're using a product. Or you can use something like ACC, awareness, comprehension, conversion, right? And that's more for like info-based funnels. I know that some of you have your own sort of info products that you attach onto your practices. You can use that for those types of things. But really just start with picking one, test it, and then test another one after that. So move on from one to the next. But then another thing that's in here is the 5 laws of copywriting. So we're gonna hit the 5 laws of copywriting. Tell emotional stories. People don't buy logic; they buy how something makes them feel. And so that kind of flies in the face of what I was talking about before. But you can use them both, right? You can use a little bit of emotion and how you make them feel, but then you also have to have both. You have to have that part where it gives them something to hold on to after the emotion has passed. But another thing you want to do is write like you talk, not like a legal brief, right? Kind of like a barstool conversation. And I'm not talking about barstool sports. I'm talking about like if you're sitting at a barstool talking to someone. So speak to one person. Imagine your best client's face every time you type. It's a really, really simple way of doing it. And spend 80% of your effort on the headline. That's another one of these rules. It's the ad for the ad. That's a really important one. Even if you have a wonderful ad, if you don't have that headline, it doesn't matter. Another thing you want to do is address objections in order. So think, I don't have time, I don't have money, it won't work for me. Knock these down one at a time. That's another thing that they suggest in this playbook. And then when it comes to those 5 objections, write them on a sticky note. And every time you write copy, ask, did I tackle all of these? And if you didn't, you need to go back and rewrite it. Because if you don't solve them in the copy, you'll be stuck really probably solving them on the phone. Think about how much time your team spends on the phone. Or even worse, what'll happen is they won't even call. That's one of those things where if you're not getting some conversions and if you're running ads, the problem could be is that your ad copy is wrong. So, and you really don't need to be Shakespeare. You really don't. You just need to be clear is what you need to be, is just be clear in your messaging. So here's a 1-line summary to sort of remember this part of it. And it's good copy. Doesn't sound like a copywriter wrote it. It sounds like the reader wrote it in their head. Okay. That's a way of thinking about it. So let's get on to segment 2. And this is how to stop overthinking and start moving your business. This is from an article that I found, and it's from Entrepreneur. And so the next few, I'm going to be covering articles that I've condensed down for you so you don't have to read them. But before I get into that, I'm going to ask you a question, and think about this. How many decisions are sitting in your head right now, half finished, overanalyzed, and they're just collecting dust? And so if you're like most other legal entrepreneurs, you're not stuck because you're lazy. You're working your butt off. You're stuck because you're just thinking too much about it. And overthinking can feel productive, and it tricks you into that. But you're researching, you're planning, you're comparing, you're forecasting. But what you're really doing is you're avoiding the moment where you say, let's go, let's do it. And so I really like this article because I want to try to flip that, because I thought it was a really cool article because they give some really good tips. And so in this piece from Entrepreneur, the writer Colin Williams breaks it down like this. So you only need 51% certainty to make a decision. And that's really cool. So instead of, getting to 100%, you don't need 100%. You don't even need 75%, just enough to lean in the right direction. Which once I read that, I'm thinking, oh, that took a lot of just kind of pressure off of me. If you've ever heard of MVP, so minimum viable product, that's something that Becca preaches just to me on a semi-regular basis. We need to get to MVP. When it comes to this, you need to get to just minimal viable decision. Okay. Minimum viable decision. And what's the real kicker with this is that any business decision that keeps you moving forward should take no more than 2 days. You get 48 hours. That's it. If you're still stewing out by day 3, you're not deciding, you're just procrastinating in disguise. So if you've gotten to that point, you got to make a decision on it. So it's really kind of interesting because it has me thinking about some of the decisions that I've spent, months debating on whether to do something. And, I would read up on it. I would research. I would look at different statistics on it, only to really make the same decision that I would have done before. I would end up leaning the same way end up going the same way, making the same decision that initially I was thinking I should do, right? And nothing had changed except that I had wasted, hundreds of days in some instances, but usually months of momentum. So that is, it's one of those things where when you think about all of that wasted time, it can get kind of frustrating. But we're now at that solution stage, right? Where we're not going to wait more than 48 hours and we're going to make a decision. Most of us, for the most part, know the answer to the problem. We're just not taking action on it. So when it comes to, I'm talking a little bit about hiring with this. And you need to be ruthless, but you also need to be thoughtful. And every role you add should answer 3 questions, because many of the things that we get stuck on is like hiring, right? But you just figure out what specific result will this person own? Okay. What are they going to own? The next question is, how does it move us forward? How does it move the firm forward? All right. So what's the result? Okay. What are they going to own? How does it move us as forward as a firm? And should this be done in-house or outsourced? Okay. If you can't answer those fast, then don't hire. Okay. Because we get this all the time. But how do you make a decision whether to hire? Right. If you can't answer those questions fast, then don't hire. You're not going to build some overly padded org chart. What you want to do is you want to build a lean team that moves. And if you can't answer those 3, you're probably a little heavy in some areas. And what you could do is you can go back and look at the past hires or the people that you're actually that are employed for you now. And if you can't answer those questions for all 3 of those, you may have to make some changes or move people around a little bit. But let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go another layer deeper on this. And when it comes to the most productive founders, okay, and what he did is he went through and he found the most productive founders, Colin did, and he calls them the SMART consensus. And with that is, you don't really need everyone to agree. With SMART consensus, you don't need everyone to agree. You just need to gather input, right? Align on the goal and then ship the decision quickly, right? So for those of you that have leadership teams, right, align on the goal, make the decision, boom, done. And there might be situations, however, where he talks about you might need to get expert input. And if that's the case, of course, do that. But what you don't want to do is marinate in it. You get the input from the expert and then you move. For example, when we are, as lawyers, we're giving our expertise to our clients, we're giving them advice. And when we give them the green light, we want them to make a decision. So same thing with the accountant. When the accountant says, check it out, great, make the call. So they give you their advice and then you move on from there, right? The way to look at experts is they are a compass and not a crutch. And many people use those as a crutch to not take action. And I don't want that to be you. But then finally, another thing is your gut. He talks about in this article, your gut. So you've got instincts for a reason. And every law firm owner, every founder of every major company, and every law firm owner I've ever met has at least one story where they ignored their gut and they paid for it. I know I certainly have done that on hiring and other things. And so the thing is with that, your gut's not magic, but it is data, something to consider. And it's your subconscious noticing things that your conscious brain can't articulate yet. So if something feels off, you want to trust it. And if it feels right, lean in. Okay. It's a data point. You don't want to 100% rely on that, but it is a data point. So with this segment, I want to leave you with this. The biggest risk in your law firm isn't failure. It's stalling. It's inaction. I've seen this over and over and over again when it comes to people coming to masterminds or people sitting on the hot seat. It's inaction. And so letting fear dress up, well, a lot of times what they do is they let fear dress up as due diligence. And it's really not. It's just them not taking action. So don't crawl, don't circle back. What you want to do is you want to drive the Ferrari, make the call, and keep moving forward. Okay, that's what you want to do. All right, let's get to segment 3, which is about being productive. And this is a really cool article from Harvard Business Review. And what makes some people more productive than others. This is a really cool one, and I think you're going to like this one. But everyone wants to be more productive. That's the thing. Everyone talks about how do you manage your time? How do you do this? How do you do that? But the truth that most people aren't going to tell you is that it's really not about working more hours. It's not about working smarter hours. What Harvard Business Review did is they analyzed nearly 20,000 professionals across 6 different continents to find out what truly sets productive people apart. And the answer to this is that it's not talent, it's not time, it's habits. So here's what they found. First is that high performers plan their day based on their top priorities. Then what they do is they stick to it. Okay. So the night before, they set their schedule. And it's not in a vague, I'll do stuff tomorrow kind of way where, I've got this list of things I'm going to do. But instead, what they have is they've got clear outcomes. And what they do is they jot down the objective next to each calendar event, which I found kind of interesting. That's something I do. Lots of things I don't do that. So they figure out what the objective is to it. And it's an added layer. I think that's pretty cool. Second, what they do is they don't get drowned in messages. So they don't drown in messages. Instead, they check their screens maybe once an hour, not every 5 minutes. And that's a big mistake that I hear a lot of people make is they're always on their phone. They're always on social media. They're always checking X. They're always on Facebook or Instagram. And so that is a huge time suck. And so what they do is they skip low value messages. That's what they do. And then what they do is when they batch their replies. And by doing this, they build actual breathing room into their calendars. And so if you just did that alone, it's probably going to 10x your input or output. So it's going to lower your input and it's going to increase your output, which is pretty awesome. And then the third thing they do is they outline before they write, which is kind of an interesting one. And so that doesn't matter if it's an email or a memo or a proposal, they think before they type. And so that the outline sort of acts like a GPS. And it saves you from, the way they put it, U-turns and rabbit holes. I would like to say I do some form of this. So what I'll do is I'll kind of type in some keywords into the email on one occasion or two. Maybe I've mistakenly sent the email with the keywords in it, but it doesn't happen a lot. But I have where I've kind of typed in some of the words, the things I wanted to cover, and then I go and hit those. But I don't outline it to this extent. I think I'm going to start doing this because I think it's a really cool idea. But another insight from this is that age and seniority matter, and probably not for the reasons that you and I would think, but older and more senior people scored higher. And it wasn't because they had more hours, experience hours, but because they had better systems in place that they had built over time. So they weren't winging it. What they had done is they had created a system that worked, and they learned what worked, and they utilized it, which was pretty cool. So what we can do is speak to people that are older and figure out, hey, what's working for you, and really try to adopt some of those. And another thing that they put in this was that, interestingly, that women were more likely to run effective meetings. And it's because they set agendas in advance. They kept things under 90 minutes, and then they closed with next steps. And then men, on the other hand, were more likely to skip emails and go straight to action. So that's kind of an interesting thing from the study as well. But so there's different strengths. So in that one, you've got, women were better at, running meetings. Men, on the other hand, what they were able to do was they were good at really taking action for the day. So they're moving past the emails, or they're not worrying about emails, they're just taking action. So, different strengths, but really the same goal: stay focused, stay efficient. So let's now, though, talk about the outliers on your team. So some of you call them, the rock stars, the superstars. Those are the ones who scored 2 standard deviations above the rest. And so this applies to, the professionals that they had reached out to. They did 3 things consistently. The first thing is they crushed procrastination. This may be a hard one for you all to hear, but they crushed procrastination. And so what they did is they started with the final outcome in mind, and they reviewed and then prepped everything the night before. That's very similar to the other one, but it's really just not rocket science. It's just repeatable behavior that they did. So if you want to be more productive starting today, here's your cheat sheet, right? So make your schedule the night before, write down objectives next to your appointments or your calendar items. Stop checking your phone every 10 minutes, or your computer if you're checking things online on your computer, and then delegate what doesn't move the needle. Okay. So you should be doing the things that does move the needle. It doesn't, delegate that down. And then they say always at the end of meetings, end them with clear next steps, which is pretty cool. So a big part of this is that they talk about productivity. It's not about hustle. It's really about clarity. And if you can get that right, you're going to accomplish more in 6 hours than most people do in 10, which is pretty good. With that, we are going to take a little break, and I'm going to run a little ad, and then we will be back in a moment. And I've got a little welcome back video as well, which is, I think, kind of fun too. So I will see you in about a minute. If your law firm collapses the moment you take a day off, you don't own a law firm, you own a job with a fancy title. Listen, burnout doesn't fix itself, and no one's coming to save you. Each day that you delay, the firm's going to keep running you and not the other way around. Law firm owners for years have been coming to Max Law Con to have better profits, increase their revenues, lower their expenses, and get rid of the burnout. Click the button below to get your tickets to Max Law Con 2025 and build the business that you deserve so you can get back to the things you love.
Welcome back to the Guild Morning Show. And now, back to your host, Tyson Mutrux.
So I was really torn between doing that one and then this one.
And welcome back to the Guild Morning Show. Now back to your host, Tyson Mutrux.
I was really going for like a Tonight Show theme when we're coming back from the break, but it looked a lot too much like a politician. So it was kind of a fun one. But I want to get into meta bans. This was an interesting thing that's happened recently where Meta's Facebook group chaos that they had and what it means maybe for some of you that have Facebook groups that you rely on for business. Because I know a lot of you, there are some ways, there's a couple different ways of going into groups and using that to generate business, or there's some of you that actually run Facebook groups that generates business. And so hopefully none of you were hit by this, but imagine this, you log into Facebook and your group is gone. You think maybe this is just a mistake, but in reality, no warning, there's no explanation. It's just vanished. And that's what happened to thousands of Facebook group admins last week. And so, it didn't matter. It was like groups on parenting. It was on pets. It was on Pokemon. And this is from TechCrunch, by the way. Even if it was just for bird photos, they were wiped out for terrorism, quote unquote, terrorism related content. And I wish I were joking, but Meta, they called it a technical issue. And so most admins, they think it has to do with some rogue AI moderation. And so here's sort of the kicker. Some who paid for the Meta verified, they got support. Everyone else though, no answers, no fixes, no appeal, nothing. And for any of you that have had to appeal anything through Facebook, it is kind of a pain in the butt, because we've had in another group I was in, at a bourbon group I was in, we had gotten flagged for some things. So people are trying to sell things and that's not allowed. And so appealing some of the things, it was just a nightmare, but ultimately it got fixed, but it took a long time. So some admins even got flagged for nudity, and one of those was in a group about parrots. And so for some people, this is just like some funny glitch, right? It's like a serious wake-up call where some of these groups had like tens of thousands of people, some had millions of members, and that this was the core of their business or their community. And when they got banned, people lost like complete sales funnels, their complete list of people, their entire customer base was gone overnight. And so I want to kind of go through like what can we learn from this? And I say lesson one is never build your house on rented land. And I'm saying this in a Facebook group now it was on rented land. So that's something that we've actually been, Becca and I've been talking about for quite a while. You can use Facebook, you can advertise on Instagram, but I think if you don't have a home of your own, some sort of website, someplace, some sort of, your own email list, a database of your people, then you're really vulnerable. Luckily, we do have our list. We have all that, but something that we're working on is, potentially moving us off of Facebook. And so luckily we've already been kind of working on that, but also luckily we didn't get hit by this. But, Meta, Pinterest, Tumblr, Instagram, you name all of them, they've all faced mass suspension issues fairly recently, and AI is typically the common thread. That's a scary thing. It happens really fast, and it's really not nuanced. It doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't. So you got to be careful. Lesson 2: treat your community like an asset, right? So those of you that have got your customer base, your client base, you need to treat them like an asset. Back up your data. Get your followers onto your list. Diversify your channels the best you can, and then build your brand off of the platform. So, and I understand that some of you this doesn't apply to, but you do have your own community wherever it is, and even if it's not on social media, it's in some other, even if it's local, but you're quote unquote on rented land. You gotta be really, really careful. So, third lesson: we are entering an age where automation and AI is only going to increase, and it's our job to keep the human touch alive. Really, really important. And if machines get it wrong, and you're going to need that safety net that doesn't start with login with Facebook and then ask for support. So you need to build onto your into other areas and really diversify and protect yourself quite a bit. But let's get into the last topic. And I know this is going to hit some of you pretty strong. And this is another article. It's the death of the resume and the arms race it triggered. This is a really interesting article. And as soon as I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so right. And this is from Ars Technica. I don't know how you say that, but it's a capital A, lowercase rs. So I think it's Ars, not ARS, but Ars Technica. And so it talks about how it's official. The resume is dying, and AI is the one that's holding the smoking gun, which I think that's kind of fun line. Right now, this is a stat that is mind-blowing. So this is crazy. But LinkedIn processes over 11,000 job applications per minute. And so let that sink in. 11,000 applications per minute. And most of those are AI generated. It's generic, keyword stuffed. It's polished to death by ChatGPT. And so what used to be like a really thoughtful snapshot of someone's background has become really a high-speed arms race. It reminds me of the arms race that my neighbor and I used to call it the arms race when it comes to bourbon collecting and who could get the most bottles. It's a little different because it's really people applying to the most jobs is what's happening. But candidates, what they're doing is they're using bots to write. They submit and then they follow up on applications, which is, it's kind of clever. I think that's kind of a clever thing. Not all, but some are doing this, and some are even paying for AI agents that apply to hundreds of jobs a day. And the companies, what's happening is they're fighting back with their own AI. So it's very similar to some conversations I've had with people about what's coming and the AI talking to each other. That's kind of what's happening here. And so Chipotle, use them as an example. They use a chatbot named Avocado, and they love using avocado themed things I've found, but they're using that to cut hiring time down by 75%. Pretty good. I wouldn't mind having that. LinkedIn, they rolled out its own AI to sort candidates, write messages, and then pre-screen talent, which is pretty cool. I'm not surprised that LinkedIn has done that. So what we've got is a bot war, an AI bot war, and AI applicants versus AI screeners is what we have. And then humans are getting lost in the middle, where the ones that aren't using AI, think about those of you that have put a job up and you've had to go through hundreds of applications or even dozens, right? It's a real pain. So this isn't something just affecting non-AI companies. It's also AI companies. They're tapping out on this. Anthropic, which has made some splashes fairly recently. They make Claude, and they've added many NPC tools recently, which is pretty cool. But they told job seekers not to use AI when applying, and so that's pretty smart. And I don't think you want to submit an AI generated resume to an AI company because they're going to figure it out. But I think it's kind of funny because it's kind of like Coca-Cola telling you not to drink a soda. But whatever. Then you also have an added twist, which is fraud. So some people are hiding invisible text in their resumes to trick screening software, which is kind of fun. Fraud's not fun, but it is kind of interesting. Others are using fake identities. And Gartner says 1 in 4 applicants might be fraudulent by 2028. that's just scary. It's not just a broken system. It's really just gotten absurd at this point. And so really, like, what is the future? I don't think resumes are going to survive, at least not well, as we know them currently. And there are some companies that are already shifting to other things, like they're doing live problem solving interviews, portfolio based hiring, where you submit a portfolio of things you've done in the past, paid trial projects. So I know some of you already are doing some things like that, where you pay them to come in for a day. But basically ways to test their real ability, not some sort of polished fluff. And so here's what this means for you. If you are hiring, which I know many of you probably are on a regular basis, try to find a way to stop relying on resumes if you can. I know that can be difficult, but if you can find a way where you just kind of cut through the BS and try to move them into a different stage as quickly as possible, that's really great. I know we use Zoho Recruit, which is really nice and allowing us to filter out things, but what you have to do is, it doesn't matter what your filter is, build a better filter. Ask candidates to solve a real problem. Have them submit a short video instead. So if they do submit an application, ask them to submit a short video, or have them show you something that they've done in the past. And so those of you that are maybe listening to this you're thinking about starting your own firm, but you're applying to different firms, I'm just telling you, don't game the system. We'll figure out at some point. If we hire you and you're not what your resume says, we're going to figure you out. So you want to stand with your personality, be clear with what your intentions are. So, and that'll make you a better candidate than these others. But yes, use AI. This is for everybody, whether you're a law firm owner or a candidate, but use it as a tool, but not as a crutch. But because the end game is that no one really wants to admit this, but it's robots interviewing robots for jobs performed by robots in many instances. So, and this is all going to be like while we're sitting on the beach wondering what happened. So that's kind of what we're all kind of headed, but we're not there yet. We're just kind of headed in that direction. But let's try not to get there. Let's keep it human for as long as possible. But that is all I have for us today. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. I am going to end this with another ad for those of you that are interested in going to MaxLawCon. I hope you'll join us, maxlawcon.com. It's going to be in October in Nashville. It's going to be a lot of fun. So would love to see all of you out there, but have a wonderful day. Hopefully you enjoyed the show.
I know what it feels like to hate the law firm you built. So did this guy until he made one change. Let me tell the story about two attorneys. The first attorney woke up already behind. They hustled all freaking day from meeting to meeting, court to court, and could never get caught up. They skipped dinner because they had to catch up on billing. While they were at their kids' soccer practice, were checking emails on their laptop, trying to get work done. And as they're laying in bed at night, they're really just looking at the ceiling thinking, why am I still doing this? Now, let me tell you about attorney number two. He gets up early, has time to work out. He eats breakfast with his kids and actually takes them to school. His team runs the day-to-day. He doesn't stress being in the cases all the time, having to do depositions, having to run to court. His team takes care of all of that. And the best part, he hasn't missed his son's soccer game all year. That second attorney sounds much better, doesn't it? But here's the deal. Those weren't two different attorneys. Those were the same attorneys before and after attending MaxLawCon. That first attorney, they were about to give up. They were stressed all the time. They didn't have enough money, and they didn't know if they were going to be able to make next payroll. While attending MaxLawCon, they got real advice from real attorneys that they can actually take away and implement into their practices immediately. The best part is that I watched many attorneys, while they're at the conference, implement things right away to help improve their firms and ultimately improve their lives. You can build a law firm that runs without grinding you into the ground. If you're ready for the second version of you, click the button below to get your tickets to MaxLawCon 2025 to start your transformation.
Our next mastermind in New York City is sold out. But don't worry, there's still time to get your tickets to the mastermind and MaxLawCon in Nashville in October. MaxLawCon is 2 days of immersive learning, powerful insights, and meaningful connections, all designed to provide actionable strategies you'll take back to your firm and implement right away. No fluff, just real talk and tangible takeaways you can implement immediately. Go to maxlawevents.com for more details.
I deal with life different, make that limit squeeze. We're known for my style and identity.
Real quick, before you head out, have you checked out the Guild yet? If you've been listening to this podcast or hanging out in the Maximum Lawyer Facebook group, you've probably heard us mention it. But if you haven't taken the next step, let me tell you, you're missing the best part of this community. The Guild is where law firm owners like you go to level up. It's not just more content. It's a powerful mix of weekly live trainings, group coaching, accountability, and a tight-knit community of people who actually get what you're building. You'll be able to tap into real conversations with people who are in the trenches with you, scaling their firms, testing ideas, solving problems, and growing fast. If you're serious about building a firm that runs like a business and not just a job, this is where you want to be. Go to maxlawguild.com and take that next step. We'll see you inside.